During the keynote, Chris Smith had mentioned that we've put and updated some of our roadmaps, made a couple of different announcements of things that will be coming. But in our commitment to try to make sure that we've got as much information as we can share available, we've made different roadmap items available on our website. So I encourage anybody who isn't familiar with our roadmaps to go and check them out on every single one of our technology sites, whether that be native, whether that be the Cascade stuff, WebWorks, Air, Android. In the top right corner, you'll see a little roadmap link that will give you a listing of things that we're looking to be able to do. Some of those roadmap items may be a little wishy-washy. They may have some, kind of vague information of things that we're doing. Some of them might be a little bit more specific. As we get more and more information around the scope of what we're looking to try to deliver, we'll be continuing to update that description, or even splitting out some of the different items into more specific features. And we have a whole lot of other things that we're working on as well that haven't been put up onto the roadmaps yet, just making sure that we've got the engineering commitment and bandwidth to be able to start delivering on some of the different items there. So the list that we have up on the site, and we'll be going through essentially those different items today to give you a little bit more background on the why, the reasoning, the things that we're hearing from you on why these pieces are important to you, and give you a little bit more background. So I think what we'll try to do for the format for this session is we're going to try to get through the material fairly quickly, and we'll try to keep the questions to the end, because I'm sure there's going to be lots of questions. Probably the one that will come from everybody is when, but we'll tackle some of those. But there'll likely be lots of different questions for each of the different areas, and we just want to make sure that we get through the material first before opening up for questions, so that we have time to get through everything. So with that, we'll start kind of diving in on some of the things that we're looking at. So first thing that we want to take a look at is around our native SDK. And we talk about current items under investigation. So these are things that we are actively working on, kind of design, development, resourcing, planning, and where we're looking to try to take our tools and SDKs. So some of the big ticket items that we've been looking at is, call them apps without a UI, right? So these are scenarios, there's different types of scenarios of why you want to have some of these different applications. And there's considerations that we're looking at as we go through these as well. So there's concepts like a background service, something that's running on startup of the device or on installation of the device. And there's good reasons for some of these different applications to have this stuff. But at the same point, we want to make sure that people aren't abusing this type of scenario as well. Some of the things that we'd seen back on our previous BlackBerry operating systems is everybody just ran on startup and hooked in events into everything, and it bogs down the system. And we've recently, we've made the active frames capability, or when your application is running in the background partition, you get throttled CPU, you get throttled, kind of things that you're able to do for updating your active frames, so that kind of sandbox area of stuff doesn't bog down the whole device for other different experiences. But from a background service, there's other things that we're taking into consideration around, well, some of these services might need a high-performance connection at some point in an event that gets in there, and how do we deal with that? And also, there's other different situations, like at the bottom here, where we talk about kind of a pub-sub model, where maybe I only need my code to run when certain events happen, and they're fairly infrequent events. So how do I subscribe and make that run in the background without my application coming to the foreground, where maybe it's certain things, right? Who knows, maybe that's a geofencing thing. So only tell me when I come into this area that I want to be invoked, right? And all this stuff builds on that invocation framework that we've got sitting underneath the scene. So maybe my application is invoked when I get a trigger for things have started on the platform I've just been installed, or different things that I subscribe to. Another really good example is around a headless scenario where I've just had my user do a whole bunch of different things in my application, and they've hit the close. well, maybe I've got some queuing, maybe I've got some things that I need to take care of before my process ends, and how do I handle those scenarios, right? So these are some of the things that we are doing already internally with our applications built by BlackBerry tooling teams. However, we're working through all the different idiosyncrasies and the impact analysis on each of these different scenarios and how we can make them work well in the system so that you all can take advantage of these same scenarios, but at the same time, we preserve the user experience on the device and the performance and the capabilities that are there. So this is one of the areas that we are looking at, and I'm sure you all we've been asked a whole lot around this kind of functionality, especially from our pre-existing BlackBerry developers, as this has been scenarios that they're used to. But in some of those cases, it was a necessity to be able to get events off of certain systems. So our pub-sub model and our invocation system actually affords us a little bit better architecture to be able to possibly make some of these things happen. So we've got people much smarter than myself thinking through these. So with that, I'll turn it over to Markus to talk a little bit about some of the innovations we're looking at around the Cascades framework.
Sure. Okay, so my name is Markus Landin, and I'm from the BlackBerry TAT office in Malmö. And my focus is obviously the Cascades UI framework. So one of a common use case in the applications is drag and drop and rearranging in lists. This is something we do have applications on the platform today that has implemented rearrange use cases, for example, the music player. But it hasn't really been that straightforward for these application developers. And even though they look kind of good, it doesn't really look as good as we want it to look. So when we get this kind of list rearrange functionality in place, more built into the Cascades UI framework, it will be much easier to implement this, and it will look better as well. We quite often hear requests about more styling possibilities. I mean, today the controls that we provide with Cascades, they have their appearances, and if you want to create something that is kind of custom, then you have the possibility to implement your custom controls and use images and so on. The kind of styling possibility that we're planning to provide to you now is the possibility to use your own, what we call accent colors. So exactly how this will look is something that is still to be defined, something we need to work closely with our designers so they can say how accent colors will be used. But the idea is that if you have some kind of brand color or something, then you should be able to apply that to the application and to the different UI controls. Then we have custom fonts. I had an interesting conversation yesterday with some of the designers from the TAT office, and their idea and their opinion, and I kind of agree, is that unless you have a very good reason for it, you shouldn't change the font faces, the font types. Go ahead and use what we have. We have a good-looking font. It looks good. You can easily read it on the screen, but maybe you have some kind of brand guidelines or whatever. So if you, for some reason, want to change it, you will have the possibility to use your custom fonts with a Cascades application. If you can click to the next slide. Okay, and also related to custom fonts is custom emoticons. I mean, you know what an emoticon is. It's the smileys and so on that you have in Messenger applications. So if you have an application, if you're implementing an application, messaging application, and you want to have your own emoticons, you will have the possibility to register these, and Cascades will be able to render these in your application. And then finally, we have the more or less obvious feature that if you use an image view, instead of just using images from the local storage, you will be able to specify a URL that will be loaded and displayed as part of your application. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So over to next person.
Sure, I'll pop back and talk a little bit about some of the Visual Studio stuff. Oh, I am Mike here. Yeah, so to one of the points that Markus had brought up around the custom fonts, right? there is method to our madness around the cascade fonts of small, medium, and large, and these things being what you're able to use. And one of the reasons, and part of the stuff that we've been talking about here over the last couple of days, is around screen resolution changes and pixel density changes, and how the framework can adapt itself to these different environments. And by able to have small, medium, and large, by having the framework being able to render these fonts into something that our user experience team has said, these are the right size fonts that we find gets the premium experience on the device, that's where it's being able to do and make that stuff happen. Custom fonts, you'll be left to being able to, again, figure out what's the right point font that you need for your user interface to look the way that you want in there. So Visual Studio tooling, we wanted to touch a little bit about what we're doing with our Visual Studio tool. We get a few different questions about it. Why Visual Studio, and why are you providing a plugin there as well? So what our intention is around our Visual Studio plugin is it's very, very specifically targeted towards gaming developers. The vast majority of gaming developers that we talk to are typically all using Visual Studio with multiple different build targets coming out of Visual Studio for Xbox, PlayStation, iOS, you name it, all coming out of there and using that tooling for that environment. So it was something that we were hearing over and over again from our gaming community of being able to provide a plugin that would allow for building, compiling, and debugging inside of that environment. So we do not have any intentions on making this a full-on, cascades, development tool inside of Visual Studio with all of the different things that we're putting into Momentix here. This is a very targeted environment with only the features needed by a gaming developer to be successful and use the same feature functionality that they have for every other platform inside of Visual Studio. So with that, one of the first things that are on our list is getting the gold release out the door. So we're very, very close to being able to do that. As well as on the roadmap is making sure that we've got the Visual Studio 2012 or Visual Studio 12 support within the tooling. Trying to make sure that we've got that same compatibility as the tooling upgrades there and making that all go. So Momentix, we have a lot of fantastic plans for Momentix, and we can share a little bit of some of that here. So one of the primary things that we're looking to do around Momentix, and we've heard, we have lots of great success stories. I was able to get my application created easily, being able to do this stuff. But we still feel that first-time experience and coming in and using Momentix is something where we can really improve the user experience. Whether that's finding the BlackBerry specific things, how you get up and get started, choosing your target OS, how you link up with simulators, being able to do upgrades, all of these different types of things. We feel there's a lot of area where we can kind of improve that BlackBerry developer experience inside the tooling. And so we'll be doing a lot of different updates inside of there to be able to really make that environment a lot easier. Along with that, and something that Chris had mentioned in the keynote, is looking at being able to bring a visual drag-and-drop editor into the environment. So those that have been here and worked with us for many, many years in the Java side, it's been one of these unicorns that we've been chasing for quite a while. But by being able to move to an environment in Cascades where we've got QML and a markup from your UI aspect of things, it makes tooling and round-tripping a lot more possible than code generation and round-tripping in through code like we had in the previous years of Java development. So trying to take our visual editing even further than the QML visual editing and the preview, and being able to have more of a visual drag-and-drop environment is something that we're actively looking into and making some plans for. So it's always one of these interesting environments, and we always get mixed feedback from people. We find that it's a very great environment for quick prototyping, mock-ups, and early adopters, and people coming onto the platform, and it's their first time with the technology. Because QML, you have to learn QML to understand its structures and how you're going to nest all the different pieces. But it's also a tool that typically gets you to that next point of where you're not necessarily using it as much anymore and actually leveraging the code in QML as you go further and further, as you get more advanced in the things that you're wanting to do. So that's a lot of, kind of some of the different things that we're looking at. We're looking at doing a lot of different things, from even making upgrades, and when you plug your device into the environment, knowing which target OS that you need to be able to do your debugging. A lot of different things that we're concentrating in here to make a really great experience. So with this too is looking to be able to pick up some CDT updates and some updates in and around Eclipse itself to be able to help and create a better better tooling, better support around Qt support, specifically around things like code completion, signals and slots, and Qt development in there. A constant focus is performance. So not only just in the tool and moving around with it, but debug cycles, build, deploy, connect to simulators, all of these different things. How can we make that cycle of rev and debugging and what you're doing quicker? If you're doing primarily QML and JavaScript development, can we do something there to make those edits and changes quicker and easier? So a lot of different investigation on how we can make the performance of the tool and the constant round trip of edit, test, repeat that you're doing that much faster inside of the tooling. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Ken to talk a little bit about our web strategy and what we're doing with our SDKs.
I thought I was doing karaoke. No.
Well, I'll dance if you sing.
Oh, that's tempting. But no, we won't do that to these people. WebWorks. So many of you might be familiar with WebWorks, where it's come from. It's been available on our platform since BlackBerry 5.0. On the BlackBerry OS system, it was underlied by our Java platform. When we moved to Playbook, it was built on top of Air. And now in BlackBerry 10, our initial, we got to get it out the door, we need to get this for BlackBerry launch, we built it on top of native. But it's always been a custom BlackBerry approach to mobile web development. But it's somewhat alongside of what web really is. So what we've been building in BlackBerry is a top-class web platform, and it's about the open web, open standards, being part of the communities. This is really what we're trying to get to. And being, when it comes to native application packaging, the real center of gravity for that in the industry is resolving around Apache Cordova, which came out of the PhoneGap project, which probably many of you might know better than Apache Cordova at this point. Apache Cordova came out of PhoneGap and is really the basis for PhoneGap at this point. And we have an implementation for BlackBerry 10 in Apache Cordova. But that implementation sits on top of our WebWorks implementation. So there's multiple layers here. And we've had to adapt the Apache Cordova APIs to work on top of WebWorks. We really need to reverse that. We need to really be embracing the community aspects as well as we're doing with our WebKit implementation. All of our browser support for standards. We want to do the same thing for mobile packaged applications. So we really want to build our WebWorks implementation on top of Apache Cordova and be part of that community. We want the implementation to be the same for people that go through to the PhoneGap distribution, or whether they actually select to go BlackBerry specific. It's the same approach. And this is being enabled by the Apache Cordova project's evolution that they're going through right now, with their APIs becoming kind of core plugins that all get pulled together based on what platform you're targeting, and their approach to standards involvement as well, in terms of looking at the config XML file for project configuration, that sort of thing. So we wanted to make sure that everything that we're doing on the web side of things is enabling the frameworks that people are using in the open web, and moving on to Apache Cordova as the foundation will allow us to better leverage these other frameworks, because a lot of these frameworks are looking at Apache Cordova as being the center for these mobile packaged apps, and so we'll get the support as part of it much more easily than trying to get them to build it around WebWorks or as well as on WebWorks. So there's a lot of different things that are building up around Apache Cordova, and we want to be a part of that. And it doesn't make sense to be somewhat separate from it anymore. So we're working right now on basically a fourth implementation of WebWorks again on top of Apache Cordova. We want to make sure that our first release for this doesn't bring anything less than what we currently have. So our first implementation on top of Apache Cordova will have everything that we currently have in WebWorks in terms of API support, including all of the BlackBerry goodness, things like BlackBerry Messenger, payment, that sort of thing. So we want to make sure that BlackBerry 10 is a core platform for Apache Cordova. If you're building a true cross-platform application, it works for you out of the box. But if you want to get further on the BlackBerry solution, you can get those whether you're in PhoneGap or whether you're in WebWorks. You can pull in BBM. It's just an extension to Apache Cordova, and you get all of this for free. We will still have a BlackBerry distribution from developer.blackberry.com. What we're looking to do there is really pull together different pieces. Apache Cordova is great, but it's almost its own framework that has. They're even looking at different tools that they can build on top of it, and we want to make sure that we're bringing in all the top pieces to build a concise single point of distribution for BlackBerry web applications. Mostly, I think the big significant priority there is enterprise development. Enterprises do like to have a single tool that's supported, that's documented, that pulls in a lot of things to be a cohesive unit. And we're looking at different things here. We want to ensure that we're getting best-in-class support for jQuery Mobile, Sencha, and PhoneGap, and working with frameworks and tooling providers around Cordova. And this is where we're going to pull some of these pieces together into a single distribution for BlackBerry developers and be part of the general Apache Cordova evolution, so helping to drive that project forward as well. But it's really about, like I said, the open web and ensuring that web is cross-platform by nature. And we want to make sure that the tools that people use in web development are best in class for BlackBerry 10 and work well. And a lot of that is kind of building up around Cordova. So this is where we're heading in the next few months. So I'll pass it over to Matt to talk about Android and Air.
Thank you. Okay, so for the Android runtime, as mentioned before from the keynote that Chris was talking about, we are looking to upgrade to the Android Jelly Bean 4.1 runtime. I could just leave it there and not say anything more, but you're probably looking for a little bit more information on that. So what we're looking to do is, as we move to that runtime, bringing support for everything that we have today within Gingerbread 2.33 onto there as the initial, got to get to that stage first, and at that time we'll be able to evaluate all of the various features within Jelly Bean that we can then map to BlackBerry 10. So there's things on our future outlook list of Bluetooth support, NFC support, but the initial phase that we need to at least get completed first is the bring up of the environment, which we're getting close. We do have it running experimentally to running a subset of applications. So that's the main first step. So as we get a little bit closer and do a little bit more work, we'll be able to start listing out other roadmap items that will be coming to that as well. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that as well.
Yeah, no, I think from our Android and Air side. So from Adobe Air, we've had it up on the roadmap for a while now that we're looking at a bring up of an upgraded runtime there as well, right? So for both of these different environments, the vast majority of applications that are coming across are looking for compatibility, and they want compatibility with as latest runtime as they can get on the platform, because it usually brings some cool features or functionalities or performance and fixes that come along with it. So with both of these different worlds, we're trying to make sure that we bring those runtimes up, and there is a delta between the Gingerbread and Jelly Bean functionality that's there. So all of our Gingerbread applications continue to run up on the Jelly Bean runtime. There is an extra delta for us to try to then wrangle back in to get ourselves up to the percentage of compatibility that we already have with Gingerbread to a percentage of compatibility with Jelly Bean. Some of the things we just weren't able to do because Jelly Bean didn't really have that great of an implementation of some of the different things like Matt had mentioned.
Yeah, so that's a good point, because there's a lot of items in Jelly Bean or Gingerbread that developers say, "Oh, I want support for this. I want support for this," which we'd love to give, but the older OSs in Android, they didn't build upon too much of a standard space. So with a lot of the newer ones, it'll be a lot easier for us to add new features, hopefully quicker, because they'll better align with what we have on BlackBerry 10.
Yeah, and so, I mean, when Matt had talked about, we were looking at how do we overlay some of those different feature functionalities on top of existing BlackBerry functionality, right? So from an Android perspective, there's certain share capabilities and things like that are in Android, and what we did is we layered them over top of our share framework. Right, so we've got different abstractions of functionality that can have parallels on BlackBerry for those things, and our main concentration on Android is around just compatibility, and we're not looking to bring BlackBerry-specific APIs at all to the Android runtime. It's of very, very little interest to anybody that we're talking to from the Android community. They just want to bring their existing apps over on the platform, and have been looking at Cascades more of an environment where they want to do BlackBerry-specific coding. Our air environment is slightly different, where we do have some BlackBerry-specific functionality already exposed that's in there, and some stuff that's not typically available as part of an Air runtime implementation, and extra feature functionality that we can provide. So, we're looking at bringing things like Score Loop. We see a lot of different Air games that are as part of the store, and being able to participate in Score Loop. Same thing with BBM. These are some of the high-value pieces of functionality that are over and above what Air offers you out of the box, and we're looking to see which ones make sense to bring onto the platform. And these are some of the immediate ones that pop up that we're having under consideration. Okay.
So the last section that we wanted to highlight was simulator and signing. So under the simulator, one of the things we're referring to the BlackBerry 10 simulator here. The first item is better installation and setup. So items around this is just that out of the box, simplifying downloading of the simulator and having to install multiple things to get it up and running. Just so it's a lot quicker to go from without having the simulator to having it up and running within your environment. So there's a couple ideas that we have to investigate with that. And then the second one that we're currently working on is controller improvements. So if anyone's in the audience that was at our previous session, I talked about our controller application. So we're looking to expand upon that to make it a little bit more interactive, a lot more easier to use. Maybe take some highlights from how Ripple uses some of the virtualization of maps and 3D tilting of a device for simulation of rotation. So that's in the works. So that's something that we'll be rewriting in the future. Looking at signing, and anyone in the audience that has been doing app development, you should be happy with this one. So we're looking to bring BlackBerry ID to signing accounts. So basically it's that one ID to rule, or BlackBerry ID to rule them all. So no more the needs of having to remember signing keys and losing signing keys and have I downloaded, where are they?
If I understand this correctly, this means that the effort with keeping the signing configuration, the bankroll, will be over in the near future.
So the main improvements that we're looking to do around here is around key setup, and if you lose your keys, and the tying of the identity of your keys to you. So right now it's separate from your BBID, and we've been consolidating BBID for being able to do the logins into App World, the logins into your developer area. So now we want to get to a point of where as soon as you sign up as a BlackBerry developer as part of our developer zone, keys are generated for you. And when you want to go and set up those keys on a machine, you type in your BBID and it automatically pulls them down and sets them up. So no more crazy emails saying, here's 17 keys, go figure out what directory to put them in, and then call these 32 command line calls.
We lost our signing environment, but still the system can fire in the office, and so we couldn't update anything anymore.
Yeah, and that's... Yeah, so this is we hear this a lot, or even setting up a secondary machine and how do I move my keys from one to the other, or if I've lost my keys. The concept is that your identity of your signing is always tied to your BBID, so it doesn't matter if you lose them or move to another machine. You just sign up and you've got your new keys generated and based back onto your ID. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so with that, we didn't want to go through a whole lot of talking about some of the different items because I'm sure there's a lot of you out here that have very specific questions on things that you're wondering if we're thinking about them, what are we doing? And we have already got a question here, so we wanted to just open it up to some questions. So,
Could you please see the second and third slide again? I missed it
Oh.
from my blog. I couldn't photograph it.
this one?
No, the first and the second.
Oh, the first and second, sure. We'll rewind.
We put them on our blog.
So you should be able to grab all the sessions, the PDFs of the sessions afterwards as well.
Yes, but we have some people waiting. Yes,
All right.
them, please. Thank you.
You got it.
Yes. Now I can send it home. Thank you.
Sure, got a question?
Are you breaking out questions or
Yeah, let's fire away.
which area runtime?
Which Air runtime? That's a fantastic question. So right now, I think the work that's going on, it's a debate between either 3.3 or 3.4, and it's more of along the lines of source code availability. I think 3.3 was already, much like Android, we have the prototypes up and running on the platform. 3.4 is, I think we just recently got access to the source code to be able to start making any changes there. Yep.
Any plans for a library wizard in Mgmt that's cascades away onto processing after it's been built?
So a library wizard that is cascades aware. For can you give some examples?
C++ where you want to link that back to cascades. You have to post-processing and condites in a few other bits and bobs as well.
I am not sure. Let's connect afterwards, and you can give me a little bit more details of what you're looking for there. Yep.
Are you going to be improving Mgmt on Linux? It's currently buggy and QML preview doesn't work.
Yes, so Linux. Linux is really, really tough, even from a simulator perspective for us, too.
I care more about it being buggy than the QML preview.
Yeah, so Linux, some of the different things, QML preview comes down into a lot of cases video drivers and some of the different things that are there. Trying to support Linux from anything that's video driver aware. We do testing on a specific version of Ubuntu, but what we find is most Linux developers have Frankensteined together something, which makes it very, very challenging for us to build a stable piece of software for Linux developers. We are constantly looking to try to improve what we support on Linux. Our simulator right now, I think even VMware kind of supports it, but they have no hardware acceleration there either, so everything will run slow. It's only software because they can't know of whether or not the right drivers are going to be there. So Linux is definitely a challenge for us. If you're finding different bugs and issues with it, please do file it for us. We will do everything we can to fix any of the issues that you're seeing. So we do want to make sure that we support Linux, Mac, and Windows. Just to give you an idea of from what we see from our user base, we typically see from our NDK, I think it was about 85% Windows. I think the rest was there's about 2% Linux and the rest was Mac, it surprises us quite a bit on the Mac stats specifically. But trying to get feedback and bugs that come back in to be able to find those things is hard for us as well, just because there's not as many people using it. So anything that you can do to log bugs in the developer issue tracker to get back through to us, we will try to resolve them as much as possible. Okay. There's a question back here first.
So more comments on the Linux thing. Just that there have been some bugs that have been really difficult to deal with, and this is talking about Ubuntu-based builds that have been there for several builds of the SDK, and it's just like nobody sort of focuses on them. And also that 2% of you have on Linux is probably downloading Windows 2 just because of how difficult it is to develop on Linux.
Okay. Yeah. So, have you the issues that you're finding? Have you logged the issues against in our developer issue tracker for Linux?
They're already there.
Okay. Yeah, we'll go back and take a look through the ones. I mean, to be perfectly honest, our concentration has mostly been on Windows and on Mac because of the vast majority that we're seeing, right? So, and it's on the supported versions of Ubuntu that we've got listed.
I'm not sure if it's necessarily those versions, but my comment there is that it doesn't work well. Nobody's going to use it. So.
Agreed. We want to make sure when we do our testing, we're doing our testing on a specific version of Ubuntu, right? And with an out-of-a-box scenario of that Ubuntu. The challenge for us is that everyone tweaks their version of Ubuntu, or they'll load a different version and then want it to work the same. And it's a challenge because it's so many flavors that are available that we start seeing from our community. So if it's on something that we don't support, we'll do our best to try to fix it. If it's on a supported one and you're seeing a problem and it's not being fixed, then please let me know directly. I'll give you my card. You can let me know exactly what's going on, and I'll follow up personally with it. Okay?
I would like to ask a question rather to the audience. Who actually uses the simulator in productive development?
So the question is, who actually uses the simulator for development? In the audience. Yeah.
Because in our company, even though we use some high-performance machines, we basically found the performance unacceptable compared to the on-device debugger.
Okay, so you're finding the performance of the simulator unacceptable.
Completely unacceptable. If you look at the performance, for example, Samsung Bada simulators offers, it is a world of its own compared to the BlackBerry. It's much, much slower.
Okay, so which maybe Matt can tackle some of those. It'd be good to understand which operating system that you're running it on.
Windows 7 with hardware acceleration and on Core i5 processors on HP EliteBooks with ample memory available.
Okay, so it was a notebook you said, though, laptop, and you said i5 processor?
Yes.
Is the virtual extensions enabled in the BIOS?
Enabled on the machine.
And it has hardware acceleration graphics?
Yes.
Do you happen to know the graphic
Yes,
card?
the IGMA from Intel with chips with the machine.
Yeah, so that's the issue. There are certain issues with Intel graphic cards that degrade performance, so you'll see it being fairly choppy. It's noted online, and it's the VMware, how it interacts with that particular graphics driver. Yeah.
There won't be anything done to alleviate this.
Unless once VMware addresses it in one of their releases, because it's not specific to our simulator, it's how VMware interacts with it.
Yeah, so you want to follow up with VMware on the issue with that graphics card to fix it.
I know we've asked and we've reported it, and we've done as much as we can to support those series of graphics cards. It's the nature of the beast.
Cool. In the red.
There is a beginning of integration of BlackBerry and Qt Creator. I'm not sure this is coming from you, but do you plan to get this on Qt Creator? Because I love this idea.
Yes. So the question is around what are we going to do to add more functionality into Qt Creator, and the functionality that's there, is it us that's being part of it? So we have some different arrangements with teams such as KDAB, with Digia, around some different things. Our teams specifically are not putting a ton of resources into adding into Qt Creator. Our development teams have been primarily focused on making Momentics the best we can make it. It's also why our investment into Visual Studio has been try to keep it very small and very focused, because our core focus is making our main IDE that we ship be really, really good. In the past, we had made the mistake of trying to spread ourselves too thin and try to do integrations into a whole bunch of different IDEs at the exact same time, and we ended up having a third of the solution in every different IDE. So right now, our core focus is around being able to make Momentics the best we can be, right? So we definitely are working with those different guys to be able to find out, are they, we're collaborating around, are they finding any issues? What are the different things that we can provide? How do we need to package things so that it will work better? So we're collaborating, but we're not doing a lot of contributions there right now. Okay? Sure.
So if you talk about APIs like for loop for gaming, for example, are there any plans to add like new APIs, like storage, for example, or location APIs, any other kind of cloud services?
So the question is around adding more cloud solution APIs into the platform. We do have some stuff that we're looking at around BBID. Not really around cloud storage. Most of the stuff that we've been looking at for from a cloud storage perspective has been with integration partners, where you've seen things like Dropbox and these things being integrations on the platform that extend the file system, so that when you write to that file system, it's automatically going there. But we don't have anything that we're looking at right at the moment around like a cloud-based DB to be able to store different things, other than possibly some configuration information for your apps tied to the BBID of the end user for being able to do that. So, our full kind of cloud strategy of where we're going and what we want to do with our apps and these things is kind of someone other than me to talk about what we're doing there. But from an API perspective of things, in the near future, most of the stuff that we've been talking about has been around kind of a BBID aspect.
Okay, thanks. And
Okay.
another question here.
Oh.
Just another quick one about chat. So can developers, for example, build a chat or video calling voice call between the app users? Is there an API SDK for that?
So you're looking from a VoIP API aspect?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have a bunch of different VoIP providers that are building applications that tie right into our VoIP solution on the device. I believe you can even tie those applications in so they come up through our phone application as well.
How about video calling?
Yep, video calling too. I think there's 2 or 3 video calling applications already in the store that are building on top of VoIP stacks and video stacks.
Okay, thanks.
There's back at the back here. We'll make sure we get some folks there.
With regards to Mgmt, are you planning to integrate a unit test framework?
Are we planning on going to which mode?
Integrate a unit test framework.
So integrating a unit test framework into Mgmt. So testing is one of the areas and one of the gaps that we are looking to try to fill from an automated standpoint. As far as integration into Mgmt, I think one of the things that we'd be looking at is being able to provide scripts and things that work with existing plugins and capabilities of Eclipse. So there are plugins out there for Maven, for Ant, for doing a few different things inside of Eclipse. We've been looking at what we might be able to do open source wide from a scripting and being able to make these things available, so you can pick up a testing framework that will work with BlackBerry inside of those different environments. Is that kind of along the lines of what you're wondering from a test framework?
Well, it's a unit test framework that you'll be able to run on the simulator to get test coverage.
You should be able to, from a unit test framework, there should be, you should be able to use any kind of, are you looking from a QML perspective test framework or just a C++ unit testing framework?
A cute one, but the one that recognizes the APIs.
That recognizes the APIs.
So you have to build against the SDK.
I'm not sure I'm familiar exactly with what you're looking to try to. I mean, is Elena still here too? No, we could have connected up with Elena a little bit. We can connect after. I'm not sure I understand exactly what all that you're looking for versus just using a standard unit testing framework for C++. And right behind you there's a question.
So far, no one's asked you when, so I thought I'd have your expectations met by asking when. On headless applications, I imagine you can say it won't be next week, although it may be difficult to be precise about delivery dates. So can you give us a feel for that?
Sure. So I can give you a feel that these items aren't coming for 10.1. Okay, so 10.1, that's part of the Q10 device, which will also be available on the Z10 as well when it becomes gold and production ready. This functionality is looking beyond that. Okay, so timing perspective, a lot of these things we're looking to try to make available in the release after that, right? So this is some of the stuff that we're looking at for that. The exact timing on those things I can't really, talk about at the moment. But it's after the stuff that we just put in beta.
So when is 10.1 shipping? Or
So
estimated?
the 10.1 SDK was what we released here. It was in beta. There may be a few more small APIs that come in, but they're primarily around the use of the keyboard and things like asset selectors and those sorts of things. So we're trying to not have very much gap at all between a 10 and 10.1. So it's much easier to build an application that works for both if there is a gap between when the Z10 upgrades to 10.1, whether it's through carrier availability. I believe the Q10, I don't want to be misquoted on the timing of it. We went through it with Vivek. I can't remember exactly what the timing that he said for that one. I'm not going to say it because I'm going to get misquoted. So I think we talked around, shortly after, kind of the U.S. launch of the Z10. I think is kind of the timing that we were given for it, for when the devices will ship.
When is the Z10 launch in the US then?
I believe we said that was going to be in March. Is the time frame that there is given.
I mean, I'm really not trying to pin you down. I'm trying to get a sense of
I'm
what's
wanting to
under it.
make sure that I'm giving you the right date too, and I don't lead you astray on
But
anything.
so just back on headless apps then, I mean, is there any possibility, that's all, that it could happen this year, this calendar year?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is that kind of horizon?
Yeah, absolutely. These are things that we're looking at and delivering this year. Yeah, so I think that's quick enough for us to be able to say, right?
Okay.
What point this year that they make themselves available is one of the things that we're working through for our release cycle.
Okay.
So in general, we're trying to make our release cycles between when we add new functionality to be tied more to major operating system releases that go out there. In the past, this is something that had bitten us by adding more and more APIs on every single small little dot revision, and it causes crazy fragmentation. So we want to make sure that we have a lot of great new APIs, deliver them on a fairly major operating system upgrade that we can be confident will find its way out across carriers globally in a fairly quick fashion. Question there in the stripes. I'll get you next.
I was wondering if you are planning to implement any kind of GPU profiler, CPU, GPU profiler.
So CPU, GPU profiler, we've been looking at different options there. We have some stuff in there. We know that some of the ones from the chip makers, our game developers, are actually using those and connecting straight into the GPU to do their profiling that way. As far as integrating that functionality into Momentix and our tooling to be able to get it, we do have some of that stuff internally. There's some things that need to be done in order to be able to make that stuff external for some people, but a lot of the chip manufacturers do provide profiling tools that will work with our graphics chips as well, and the gaming developers are using those. So if you had specific ones that you're looking for, then we can take a look at what some of those might be.
Okay, well, basically I'm from Imagination Technology, so we are the GPU licensors. I was just asking to know if I should know.
I'm not sure about the Imagination. I know that. I'll get you my card afterwards so you can contact, because I've got someone that will have the exact answer for you, but I think I don't know where they're here if they're still here at the event or if they've left.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Okay. Hang up in the front.
I was happy to see that on the Z10 promotional launch website material on uk.blackberry.com, my app is featured in one of the screenshots.
Hey, there you go.
It's a Android runtime app, and it's featured in the work side of BlackBerry Balance. So I guess there's been some aggressive photoshopping going on, or perhaps that's now supported?
It is not supported. Matt can maybe talk a little about that. My guess is this is a fairly interesting marketing photo that was used for being able to make that stuff in there. But no, the Android applications are not installable on the work perimeter.
So I've bothered Matt about this already, but I guess I just wanted to ask whether you're getting a lot of Android runtime apps, and if so, it would be great if we could actually see that get a bit more love.
Yep.
Enterprise love.
Yeah, and we discussed this previously, and it's one of those things where we have to understand the ask and the opportunity. And right now, the Android runtime was personal. It was to bring in consumer applications for other developers to come on board to the platform and kind of test the waters, and then come into native development. In the enterprise side, and I mean, I realize you have a great application, and it definitely meets the demand for enterprise stuff, but we haven't seen a large opportunity to, right now justify the effort. That doesn't necessarily mean that we won't look at it in the future. It's just we have a lot of other higher priority things to kind of tackle first.
And to be honest, what we're hearing from the enterprise is please do not allow that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of a tug of war between app developers wanting to do that and our enterprise customers saying, no, don't allow that. We even have certain enterprise customers that are a little bit queasy in the fact that it's allowed to be installed on the device at all. So
make it an option.
So there's a lot of different things that we're talking to some of our enterprise customers and talking with our engineering groups on what might be feasible. And there may be some things that are more of a perception versus a reality, but it's hard to even educate in some of those cases, even where we've got things very, very virtualized and sandboxed. Okay. So it's both a technology but also an education uphill battle from an enterprise standpoint. So
I guess from our experience doing an app that is mostly used by enterprises, I think there is a hole for having a really secure Android implementation, and I think BlackBerry could be it. So I hope that the Android player does get a lot more love.
Yeah, we trust me, we get the ask. It's almost like a 50-50 between the ask and the ask for not that come head to head constantly. So we're trying to see how we make that play well together.
Best 10 setting.
Sure, I know it's just those that are leery or worried about their someone flicking the switch off by mistake and causing having things to be installed too. So it's something that we definitely hear and stuff that we are investigating, but there are two opposing forces trying to vie for that right now.
I mean, from my point of view, somebody who does a lot of native development with BlackBerry, with Landin scientific calculators, typing trainers, and so on. We are happy for everything which Research in Motion does to protect us from the Android competition. But for motion holding, we are happy for every move which is made to make it difficult to port Android applications to BB10. I will say this openly here. On the risk of making myself very unpopular.
And with that, let's take another question. Whoa.
You mentioned linking the signing keys with BlackBerry ID. Yeah. Does that mean, is it going to be possible for a company to have company-wide signing keys?
Oh, it's a fantastic question. So we're trying to work through the question is, well, what if I could have a group account and a group account ID that could have multiple different people that were under that group account ID that could all have signing privileges? Yeah, I don't know if we're going to quite get there at the beginning. It may very well be if you've got a company signing account that needs to be signed by the same key, then that's done through a specific BBID for that company. It's the same scenario that if I'm publishing apps through App World all through the company and having a multi-user group based off of that same ID. So until we get, or if we get, to the point of being able to have that kind of company grouping and multiple people that have access to the account to do different things, it will likely be that there's a ID assigned to that signing account.
That works for now. It's the same as the current position. So.
It is, and we have heard the request, and we understand the use cases for it. The scenarios that we get into is just what does the complexities bring and the value of the complexities versus the simplicity of things. So we are aware of the use case. We're just, at the beginning, we're probably going to go with a single ID.
Cool.
We have time for maybe one or two more questions, and then the rest of them we can meet out in the hallway.
Yeah.
So we'll take one or two more there.
Well, we see 3 hands here, and we've got 1 back there. Are we able to do 4? We're flashing. We haven't turned bright red yet.
So we're less than 5 minutes. So.
Yeah.
Okay, that's loud. So it's been talked a lot about how BlackBerry 10 is a mobile computing platform. And we've seen this in roadmaps before, and we've even seen the OTG port on the playbook. So I think you know where my question's heading is, when do we get host mode? Because we've seen it in previous conferences where representatives have actually put it on their slides that it's in the roadmap. And if we're talking about BlackBerry as a computing platform, it's sort of required. You want to be able to connect your peripherals. And I'm a developer of embedded systems, and some of the things I do is consumer devices, and I want to be able to make things that I can connect with BlackBerry 10. Mm-hmm. And doing host mode on the device is not seen as the good option, because that then I have to control whether, okay, am I talking to a PC or am I talking to BlackBerry 10? And there's fancy hardware things you have to do. And
so you're talking about USB host mode?
USB host mode.
Yeah, so it's definitely something that we're working on. Is it solid enough timelines to be able to say, yeah, it's coming right after 10.1? That's what we're still trying to. It's not a desire. It's about just getting the staffing and everything lined up to be able to deliver it.
Okay, because it's one of those things where we've seen it come in the roadmaps and then sort of disappear.
Yeah, it's always been one of those things sitting on the bubble, to be honest, right, around other things that need to get fixed up, or bug fixes, or other deliveries, where it's been on the bubble, so it's close.
Okay.
So we had 2 more here.
One more, and then I think
one more, and then we'll head out. Okay.
So then anyone else that doesn't have a time to answer, we can get you in the hallway.
Okay. My question is similar to what Nick asked about unit testing. So would we ever get a way to run headless client, that is headless simulator, which can be used into a unit testing framework?
That's a good question for Matt, actually, because we just had that conversation.
Yeah, so it's not currently something that's in the simulator out of the box today. It is good feedback to do, to bring back to our simulator team, to provide something that can provide automated unit testing on an application in that manner. That being said, I guess it's something that there's probably other out-of-box software that could be used. I just don't know any particulars.
So, I mean, to be perfectly open, we run it internally, right? We have automated suites that run through on the simulator that do different things, that will run through on the device and do different things. Some of these different things require certain levels of access or unlocked devices in order to be able to do some of this stuff. So there's work to be done to see how we can possibly bring that out. Yeah. There's a lot of things of how do we make it available for third party without stopping some of the things that we can do that's valuable for us internally as well, that we wouldn't want to bring out. So it's technically possible. We have things doing it. It's around how would we be able to bring that out into something that others can use, because it's convoluted, and around it's not a nice, pretty packaged, well, here you just do this, and it all just works well for you. So we need to figure out how we would be able to bring it out.
So something not in 10.1 or not in the near future?
No, that would be something that we'd be looking at possibly long term. It's one of these things where we talk about installations and simulator installations and the integrated experience, and how do we get a better integrated experience so that not necessarily are we going to be limited by what VMware is going to allow us to do as well, right? So it's more of a long term. What we're going to do, our main focus on the simulator is getting a really good, simple, installable, usable simulator that doesn't have a bunch of moving parts as our first focus, our priority on the simulator. Then we'll likely start to look at what we can do around automation on it. But everything that it's been built, and we've talked about this at length, it's all built to be able to allow hooks to come into it. It's been architected that way from the very beginning, knowing that this is something that we're going to have to do.
Thank you.
Okay. And I think we're done up here.
All right. Time's up. So we can meet outside. We'll be hanging around there. We can answer any questions. We've got people familiar with all the different aspects, and we should be able to answer any.